only as he can. And we found a resident of Bethlehem that's really lived there a long, long, long time. And so we're able to get him here by, you know, one way or another we got him here. But anyway, I want to welcome you here this evening. Welcome Reuben as we join tonight.
Sheep won't do what they're told. Oh, good evening. I suppose you're here to hear about Christmas. Imagine that. You know, we get a lot of visitors to Bethlehem this time of year. Imagine that. They come to hear the story and to see the place. Is that you say? You've never been here? Oh, well, there's some things you need to know about Bethlehem. It's on a well-traveled road. Starts way in the south in Egypt, goes all the way to Hebron, and then it joins the mountains. And you dance across the mountains, as they say, to Bethlehem. It's not really quite a dance. But you get there anyway, and then it's only 6 miles to the beloved Jerusalem. Just 6 miles. We're so blessed to be able to live this close to the temple, to live this close to the Lord and His presence there. We've lived here a long time in Bethlehem. My family before me, and now my children after me, we tend to visitors that come. Yes, I'm an innkeeper. We see a lot of people and a lot of things come and go. And helping travelers is something we've done. Counting that a blessing too. But Bethlehem, what is Bethlehem all about? Well, you know the Messiah was born there. There was another famous fellow born in Bethlehem as well. Do you recall his name? King David. King David, you of all people should know that. I know your pastor, he talks about it. King David was born near Bethlehem. His father was Jesse. And David was, of course, a shepherd, as many are in this place. David was a man, being the youngest, he spent more time in the field with the sheep than any of the older brothers. They went off to war after a while. That didn't go so well. But David, he was with the sheep a lot. He wrote some fantastic songs out there while he was alone with God. And he had to rely on God. You see, there was more than once that the wild animals attempted to take what was his. And he tells the story that by faith alone, he overcame the bear and the lion, snatching the lambs even from their mouths. Oh, David, a man after God's own heart is what God called him. But that may not even be the most famous story about David. My personal favorite is about another guy, a kind of a big guy like me, only bigger. His name was Goliath. Oh, Goliath. He was known as a giant, stood head and shoulders above everyone else, and more. David had gone from his father's house in Bethlehem, just east a ways, to where the war went on. And the war had kind of changed. It wasn't men going across the valley and killing one another. But each day, the Philistines would send out their champion Goliath. And he would taunt the Israelites from there in the valley, saying, "Come down from the mountain and let us war together. You send your champion, and I will fight with him, and whoever wins, will they win the war. All Israel could do was run. They had no one big enough to deal with this giant. Even King Saul himself, head and shoulders above all other men, would not go down to the battle. So this went on for days, until David came and saw this happen. As David watched the proceedings one morning, his brother said to him, "What are you doing here? You're just a little shepherd boy. Why don't you go on home to Mama?" Well, he watched Goliath taunt the army of God, and it moved him to say this very thing. He said, "Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he would defy the armies of the living God?" Well, that got everybody's attention. He told King Saul that he himself would go out and fight this giant because he had won over the bear and he had won over the lion by the help of the Lord. And by his faith alone he would again go. And so King Saul was happy that somebody was willing to sacrifice their life. And so he offered his armor to David, but it was a little big. David said, "I don't think I need it." And so he went down to the brook, picked out for himself 5 smooth stones, put them in his pouch, and headed out to the battlefield. Put that stone in his sling as Goliath started to speak, and he let the stone fly, and surely, as an arrow flies straight to its target, that stone hit that giant right between the eyes, and down he went. Wow. So what's that? Why 5 stones when he only used 1? Well, you see, Goliath, he had 4 brothers. David was ready. My friends, is a man of faith. A man who knows how to walk with God. So David was born in Bethlehem. And maybe one other thing that you should know about Bethlehem is that the name means house of bread. And of course, you know the Messiah called himself the bread of life. And so, a nice way to think of Bethlehem is that thing that produced the bread of life. Well, to the Christmas story then. You know what brought Mary and Joseph to Bethlehem? It would not have been a place they would have visited living in Nazareth. You guessed it, taxes. Taxes have a way of making people move around. Pastor Larry told me people come here to get away from taxes. Makes people move. And so they came. It was a government registration that was to happen. Caesar Augustus called for a registration, a census. And of course then you would, in our part of the empire, you would go to the city of your origin, of your ancestors, and there you would be registered and you would pay your tax. Now, of course, you know why they did this. The Romans were smart. They first of all wanted to know who you were. Secondly, they wanted to know where you lived. Thirdly, they wanted your money. The reason they wanted to know where you lived was so they could come back for more. Yeah. You know, the Romans rule with a rod of iron. You don't cross the Romans, or you pay the price. They have this habit of making examples of people who don't follow what Caesar says. So we have the crowds. The crowd's about ready to come and pay their taxes. An exciting vacation, no? They came. Those who had lineage in our city, Bethlehem, they came, and they came. Our inn filled up rather quickly, and it became a habit of telling people, "I'm sorry, there is no room at the inn." One evening, as I had done many, many times, another couple came to the door, asking for a room at the inn. The city was jammed, and I thought to myself, somebody needs to think up a sign or something to tell people the inn is full. I was too busy. But this couple came to the door. Now, I've seen women with child before, but this one, she was with child. Joseph, his name, he told me later, his name was Joseph. He explained to me that they had come from Nazareth. That's 694 stadia from here. So you don't know what stadia are. For you, that would be 80 miles. She was ready to bust. Women didn't ride donkeys in our day, so she likely walked the whole way. I felt sorry for him, but the only words I knew at that point were, "There's no room for you at the inn." And then my wife came to the door, Hilda. She looked at that lady and said, "We have to do something." I said, "What are we going to do? There is no room at this inn." She said, "Put him in the stable." And the way she said it, it seemed that time was of the essence. I looked at her for a moment. I said to her, "In the stable?" She said, "Yes, in the stable." I said, "You're sure in the stable?" She said, "Yes, I'm sure, Reuben, in the stable." I said, "In the stable?" I don't know why she always yells at me. I felt sorry for them, and so the stable it would be. Time again seemed to be of the essence. But I want to go on record here that I hated the idea. It's what Hilda wanted, and if I wanted her to stop yelling, that was what it was going to be. So off to the stable we went. I'll tell you why I hated the idea. I hadn't cleaned the stable. We've been so busy with guests and their animals that I hadn't had time to go out there and make it spick and span for humans. You guys know what goes on in a stable, right? And that's why it has to be clean. So with the guests and their animals already in fact, for the evening, we made a place in the corner for them. Moved the manger out of the way, and got them settled in. After that, I went back to the house because I could already hear Hilda. "Reuben, bring the..." Why does she always have to yell? For 2 or 3 hours, I guess it was, we cared for the guests that were there. It was the evening meal, and so once they were tended to, I headed back out to the manger just to see what was going on. As I approached the door of the stable, I heard a very familiar sound. You know, I have 5 sons of my own. There was the sound of a crying baby. Well, I told you she was ready to bust. So when I walked to the scene of Joseph beaming as a father who acted like he'd actually done something. And there she was, Mary. She had taken the baby, wrapped it in a cloth, and had pulled the manger over and laid it in a manger. In a manger. You ever seen a cow eat from a manger?
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant sight. They drool a lot. But the baby was in the manger. That's their kid. Who am I to say? I thought immediately, I wonder what the name of the baby is. So I asked Joseph, "Have you chosen a name?" I was thinking Reuben would be a perfect one, considering that he was born in my stable. Mary spoke up. She said, "Oh, no. A name has already been chosen for him." I said, "Oh, it must be a name from your family. She said, no. And then she looked at me, and she said the strangest thing I'd heard in some time. She said to me, an angel had told her to name the baby Yeshua. Jehovah is salvation. I think you say Jesus.
Yes.
Well, she said an angel had said to name the baby. And I'm looking at them in the stable.